55% of the time, they're only doing half of the work. The other 45% of the time, they're doing 60% of the wrong work. It says, only you can't lower your standard. Your standard is the standard in which it has the business run. AI can only replace the doers, not the decision makers. Discipline over dopamine. How can I be disciplined to be able to get this over time?
Welcome to the Courageous Men Podcast, where we help Christian men follow God faithfully, love their families well, and build a legacy that lasts. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is a Courageous Men Podcast. Thank you for listening again today. I hope you are encouraged to lead in your business and in your home and in your community in ways for the Lord you've never been encouraged to do before. Our guest today is going to do just that as well. He spent years building successful gyms and coaching entrepreneurs and helping business owners move from chaos to disciplined leadership. But something that really stood out to me is his focus on decisive leadership and in business and in faith, and also how he leads his family. You know, he walked through many tough seasons and where his faith and convictions were, just required him to make very hard decisions professionally. His name is Dave Dunham, and you're going to learn so much from him today. And I love some details. Even I was about to end the podcast, and then he said something else that challenged me in a big way. So I encourage you to listen to the end. Dave, in your experience working with entrepreneurs and gym owners, you've seen how much hesitation and indecision can hold a business back. Why do you think so many leaders struggle to make clear decisions?
I think that most leaders struggle with indecision is because information is free, but experience is not. And what that basically means is that there is no shortage, especially like now in the day and age that we're in. Like, you can look up everything. There's a GPT for it. There's something that is out there to make your searching power easier because it's all at your fingertips. But like, what people don't put enough caveat on, or they don't put enough like thought process into, is the fact that that the experience that goes along with it is what we have to cherish, right? And that experience is what creates our ability to not just lead, but to lead by example and to lead through what we know. And to me, like, that's where the most growth comes from. Every business or every entrepreneur that I've ever worked with, that CEO or that owner has cut their teeth somehow in that industry. And then, to be honest with you, that's how I can tell you if you're going to be successful or not in what you're doing, is based on the experiences that you had. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you have to struggle with everything you do. So don't think that it is you got to go out and you got to grind to get it, because I don't believe that. But I think that there has to be this level of experience that you have, that you put in the work to be able to get to where you need to, so you have some sort of constructive base that you can make and that you can lead with. Does that make sense?
It does. I love that thinking, and the experience is what we have to cherish. That's what, and that's where the learning really happens, right? And that's it's prepping you so much for future experiences and for growth.
Yeah. And it's 100% as to why, and we can take this in a whole nother rabbit hole, but it's why stories always work, right? Is that if you really think about fables and stories, the Bible, all these things that we go off of, the reason why people get so enthralled in what they are and then find the meaning behind it is because the story leads to the belief, and then the belief leads to the action. And so if you really are looking at things about what makes individuals phenomenal leaders, it's they go through the thing. They're able to tell the story, but they're able to tell the story in a way that can be expounded upon, or that a person can own their own interpretation of what it was. That creates a belief, and that belief creates action, and then that action creates momentum. That momentum creates success.
What have you seen happen in businesses when a leader finally starts making decisions with, say, clarity and conviction?
Exponential growth, right? And so the reason why I say that is because my grandpa used to say is there's no way to catch fish in muddy water. And so it's the truth is if you're looking down and you can't see ahead of your feet, or you can't see where you're putting the line, the likelihood of you catching something is few and far in between. However, if you think about it, that's why people love to go deep sea fishing. That's why they love to go and fish in ponds and lakes, is because they can see the fish are out there. Then it's a matter of their skill and expertise that takes them to be able to take in the big hauls. And so the same thing I think works in businesses. Clarity always creates this decisive behavior. And then once we create that decisive behavior, we create actions. And then once those action happens, then you move, right? Even my shirt, right? profit favors a decisive, and it's the absolute belief in what we have is because it's more important for you to be decisive and make a decision based on clarity of your goals, clarity on what your standards are, and then create momentum than it is for it to have anything else.
I've seen it so many times personally, across my team. When I can gain clarity to them, like exactly what they're responsible for, exactly what we're measuring success, like the blinders come off for them too. And like now they can make decisions like they've never made before as well.
If everybody, we used to, one of the teams that I led was a group of ex gym owners who were coaches. And the way that we simply did it was like we gave our team, like, I'm big on edifying and adding persona to teams, right? Is that I think that, like, if you can do that, then it creates ownership pretty immediately in things. And like we do the same thing like in business models too. But we did this with a team and we referred to ourselves as the 96 Bulls, right? And if you think about the 96 Bulls, the reason why I did that was for a couple reasons, right? Number one, 96 Bulls were the most, at the time, were the most prolific basketball team to ever touch the Grace's marquee floor, right? Number two is because the Bulls were made not just of superstars, but they were made of all types of individuals that had specific roles that they dug into because that role led to the overall success. And then number three, even though they had the best player in the world, the best player in the world held a standard for the others, right? And I can even go off into a Michael Jordan story. But on top of that, the last part is that they have Phil Jackson. The reason why this is the most important is because the best players in the world had a coach who was able to point out their blind spots and allow them to do the things that they were able to do, but keep them in line in order to be successful. And so, like, as we built the team, that's exactly how we did it, was truly understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the individuals that were on the team, understanding who the A players on that team, giving them the ability to set the structure and the standard behind it, as long as it held into the standard that we wanted to achieve for the entire company, and then running it that way. So I was Phil Jackson. Those guys, we had a group of advisor guys, like those were my Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, if you will. And then we had the other people that were there to kind of work their way through it. So it made it so much easier to run with because there was so much clarity behind those individuals. It made that team an instant success.
I read, I think it was Phil Jackson's biography or something a number of years ago. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, I just remember thinking, man, this is good. So much to learn from that.
There's a cool story, and I think it's in Relentless, or maybe I
Oh,
heard
that's
like
it. I think that's the
yeah,
name of it. Yeah.
yeah, and so maybe I heard Tim Grover talk about it on a podcast, or I read it in the book. I don't remember, right? Like, again, information. In there, he talks about, like, one of the reasons, like, Michael Jordan was the best player on the planet, but probably one of the least like individuals as a teammate, right? And the reason why is because his standards were so unreal, but his standards were unreal because of the expectations that he had for the individuals that were around him to be able to hold the bar with him, right? So the story goes is like he used to tell the individuals on his team is that he wouldn't give them the ball unless he was assured that they can make 9 out of 10 shots, right? Now think about it. Shooting 90% as a professional, right? It probably can happen, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever been to like a shoot around and seen guys shoot or anything like that. Like, those guys are good. They're professionals. Like, it's what they do, right? But the ability to intensify that based on the expectations of the greatest player, I think it raises the bar of the other individuals that are on the team. And so, like, you may not like it while you're in the moment, but at the end of the day, like, you grow to appreciate it after, because like that pressure creates diamonds, and then that led
Yeah.
obviously led to the success that they had on their runs.
I've never followed basketball a ton in my life, but I was so impressed by that book, learning about Michael Jordan, those standards, just like you're talking about. Even if he said 9 out of 10, and they got to 7 out of 10, they're probably still better than most. Right?
So it's like you're still inadvertent. Like,
That's
teacher
right.
knew so like the root story of it is like he knew that he couldn't win without them, but at the end of the day, like, he had to understand like how to raise their standard without just being like, hey, you're not good at this. It was like, no, like, let's figure out a conducive way for us to do this and be successful. So the ability to be successful also is to, if you're always ready, then you never have to get ready. And so, like, if in your head you innately have to hit 9 shots, the one time that you get a shot, there's probably not going to be more pressure than what you've already faced in practice. So the
That's
ability to get that shot becomes so much easier when you're in the game, that it becomes just like routine work to you.
Wow, that's incredible. Dave, is there a moment maybe in your own journey where you've realized that indecision was, say, costing you something? Could be personally or professionally.
There's a lot. uh, and so let's say indecisive from a business standpoint. When I first opened my gyms, right? So my wife had worked really hard. We had really good advisors over the course of time. We had advisors in different realms, right? We were really like looking back on it now. It's like, man, like we really structured this thing really well. Like God was really looking out for us. Because I started off with a tech advisor who taught me how to run ads and how to understand KPIs and how to look at numbers. Then I had a guy, I think the next move was like my coach got hired by like Bezos. He taught me like processes and systems, and we did really well with it. And then I had, the next phase was like I hired Alex Mosey, and we were in Gym Launch, using Gym Launch as a client before I actually went to work there. And so we learned front end offers and acquisition costs and those things. So the story is we joined Gym Launch at a point where it was a really pivotal point for us. And I remember being on the call with the sales guy and then talking to Alex close. I remember being there and I was like, man, it's my last $1,000. Like this is
Wow.
legit. I don't if this is my last bit of money. And if this doesn't work, then I don't know what I'm going to do as a business owner. And keep in mind, like we had made hundreds of thousands of dollars. We had opened up multiple gyms, but like we were like every other gym that you see or every other business that you see that grows fast. It's like we were bloated. I was fast to hire and slow to fire, right? That's the opposite of what it should be. I was going through all those pieces, and the decisive moment came into this was I remember talking to the sales guy, his name was Dylan, talked me through all the processes. Like, I'm gonna let you sit with this for a little bit. And I was like, man, I don't know, dude. Like, I've had a coach before and, and it worked. And then I stopped working because I got a little, I got a little ego driven in the situation. And so I don't know if this is gonna be the right move for me. So we hop on a call and he's like, I think you're gonna be a good fit. I'm gonna turn you over, let you talk to the owner, Alex. And Alex is like, okay. He's like, so tell me about yourself. And again, this is all ego at the time. And I'm like, man, like I've been in these programs and I've made like thousands of dollars and I've done all this stuff. And he's like, well, the math just told me you're on your last $1,000. So like, explain to me how he got here.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, there it is. And so we walked through and he talks me through it. And I said, okay, I'm gonna join. And I remember I was like, it's my last $1,000. Like legitimately, we have to pay rent. Like we're getting ready to have another kid. We're going through this entire process. And, I get off the phone and I remember laying in bed with Heather because I'm up, right? And Heather's my forgiving wife. And I lay in bed with her and I'm like, babe, I was like, I just spent $1,000 on this coaching program, but they guaranteed it's going to work. And she rolled over and she's like, I love you. She's like, if it doesn't work, we don't work. And there's no motivation in the world like that. And I remember we got ads live in like 7 days, and we had so many opportunities in that first 7 days that we were almost like paralysis of like, what have we done? Because we got so many opportunities that are there. And I remember us talking, and I said, this is the point where our life will change forever. And we never look back. And we lockstep and we just never look back. And that is the moment I would say from a personal standpoint. I guess it's a little bit of business too, but like that is where the indecision almost cost me my marriage, but it also almost cost me my business because at the end of the day, like I was a little hesitant on making a decision that I know I needed to, more so because I was afraid of being successful, what the outcome would have looked like more than anything. Right. So
You were afraid of being successful.
yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt, right? And this is from a guy who like I've been like kind of joke, but like I've been like a 1% guy like my life, right? Like I've played football, I've been an All-American, I've played on a phenomenal high school football team that was the best football team in the state of Florida, one of the best in the country. Like I've been, you name it, like I've been able to do it. Like, and you still have those doubts and you still have to fall back on faith and you still look for little things, right? Like I'm a guy who like, let me look for a sign when in all actuality, like the sign is already there in your belief system and in how you approach things. So I wasn't really looking for a sign. I need to reassess and probably like refocus on my goals. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's so many things we could talk about what you just mentioned. I want to dive in on one critical point there. And, you talk about, you shared that with your bride and the response that you got. Walk us through maybe how you led her, over the next number of months and how your family moved forward and, as you're leading your spouse through that.
Yeah, like to a fault, right? Like I think that like we all get to a point where like we have this level of delusion. At that time, like so let me throw this out there too, right? This is going to be counterintuitive to what we just said. So take this as we're going through and as we're talking through the process, is that by nature, I'm a decisive individual. So I met my wife, we dated for 6 months and we got married. Like I am decisive, right? Like I know what I want. And then that's what I go after. But in the same token, when it came down to this, I based what I was doing off of who I thought that my identity was in the situation, which is why I led when I spoke to Alex about like what I'd done in the past and how great that these things were, but they didn't really amount to a ton. And they did because they were great for a short amount of time, but they weren't great for a long period of time. When it came down to like Heather and her decision, I had to give her space because I understood where she was coming from, right? I knew exactly where she was coming from because while she loved me, she also understood like she had basically left a six-figure job to come help me with this gym. And so where she was coming from wasn't a place of like of love, but it wasn't a place that she had that same level of delusion or grandeur, if you will, that I had. And so when we were walking through the process, it was like one, I had to give her space because I needed to make sure that like she understood what it was. Two is I will give and I'll lay out like the full plan to individuals and then allow them the ability to interpret it and then give it to me what the interpretation is so I can answer questions directly for them. This goes back to like the clarity conversation, right? And so like I had to lay out like exactly what it looked like. Like what do we have to do? How will we do it? What does success look like for us? We had to like manage all those things because if she's already on the fence, allowing her to create these variations of this path in her mind wasn't going to be the most successful. And then after that, what I did was I just stuck to my word. And I stuck to what I said I was going to do. Now there was bumps and bruises along the way, right?
Of
Don't get me
course.
wrong. There's bumps and bruises in that thing. Like, there were refunds.
Experiences, right?
A hundred
Like you were
100%,
talking
right?
about.
So that's where the reframe came from. It's like because there are experiences that happen on the way. There are refunds and there are hard conversations and you letting go of coaches and there's all things that happen along the way. But like those we ended up chalking up as we got stronger and as we built up our skin in the business, is those things led to being 100% experiences that we look back on and even like we talk about it now. I was like, if we wouldn't have those things, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Yeah. And I think even that was preparing you even for a bigger transition that you all made later too, right? I know you all went through a major transition and maybe you can walk us through a little bit of that or a little bit of that season too, as you and your bride have now had these experiences that you were talking about, right? And now you're moving through another transition together that I know is a difficult season.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult, right? So like we had made the transition. I was with, we were with these other people and they were like, "Oh man, like you need to open up multiple gyms and you do all these things." And we had opened up like three gyms and I opened up one that was like and so like it's funny to say it back now because like when you really think about it, like man, like that's pretty brazen and pretty egocentric to kind of think that way because it wasn't serving what it was supposed to serve. And so like we can get on that in a minute too because like we wrote scriptures on the pylons and all those things, but like that wasn't really what it ended up equaling out to, which is why I ultimately believe that like it never took off the way it was supposed to. But that's a whole nother part of the conversation. So time was really tough for us. So, and that's what led to the decision to look for another opportunity, maybe with another form of guidance or with another person, was because like we had gotten to a point where we were like, what are we going to do? Like, business wasn't there. I had a coach leave and he left and he took clients with him, which, I mean, there's not really, he can't take somebody who's not willing to go. So at the end of the day, that means that like we didn't do the things that we were supposed to do because we were so wrapped up in what we were doing. So the time was really tough. And you talk about going from making $120,000 a month, we were down to like, I want to say like $8,000 or $9,000 a month. So like really think about that,
Yeah.
right? Is
Wow.
like 120K down to like $8,000 a month, three gyms down to one, full classes of 40 people down to eight or 10. Like, we went through it before we were able to kind of build momentum and create clarity for ourselves. So like we legitimately, you name it, we went through it during that time period. We had some crazy things happen too, which I'm kind of appreciative as well. Like we had two coaches who left us during that time period and one left and it hurt because I spent a lot of time with him. You just learn from it, right? And then another person left and he actually went and committed a crime in his work shirt from us, like he robbed a bank.
Ah,
It's
oh my
crazy.
goodness.
Yeah. He went and
Ah,
robbed a bank. in his work shirt, which is absolutely crazy. But in the same token, we learned a lot in the situation. And I remember spending $1,000, and I remember just praying and saying, it's the same thing, right? It's like, if I get this opportunity or if I create this opportunity, I will never be in this position again. I've never publicly said this, so and so like this is kind of new stuff, but like we were at a point where, we'd given up everything and we had given up our house. Like, so imagine being a dad with four little kids and you are sleeping in a friend's room with you, your wife, and four kids, but you own a business. And I remember just laying there and being like, my life has to change. And we went from that to praying every night, working our way through the process and saying, if we get this opportunity, we won't look back. And like I said, we didn't.
Wow. The Lord brought you to praying though, right? Brought you back to him. Sounds like you got more of the Lord in the process.
Yeah, and like the wild thing on it is like my wife and my mom used to always say that they kind of were kindred spirits, but on a different level. And one of the things that they always tell you, or that they always tell me in situations, is like always pray for abundance, right? So like we always pray and we always put what we want out, and then from that standpoint, the Lord will deliver.
Mhm.
And that legitimately is how we looked at the situation. So it wasn't a matter of like, praying for peace in the situation. It was like, no, God, like, here's what we want. Show us the way in order, or, put us in direction in order to get to that point in regards to like what you see fit and how you see fit. And, when we reconnected with the church and, we did some soul searching amongst ourselves, because there's a lot of things that like, that I needed to fix in order to hold myself accountable. And we did those things in order to push forward, that I think that really separated us at the time.
Looking back now, Dave, I'm thinking about like the men who are listening who may feel stuck in a scenario like that, as well. Maybe they're in a job or business or just a situation that no longer aligns with who they are or their convictions. And how would you advise them now after this experience that you've had? How would you advise them to begin to discern that, maybe the difference between, quitting and stepping out in faith as well?
So this is where like, faith and goals kind of get attached hand in hand, at least in my mind, on how things truly work. Is like the first thing that we really wanted to do. And this is a credit 100% to my wife, right? So like, I feel like,
Love that.
I know she's going to watch this and she's going to be like, oh, like I told you, like, I'm like, yeah, like 8 years later, I can say it. Truth of the matter is like, I was one of those people who at the end of the day was like kind of spurned on like going to church, right? Like, so when I grew up, we grew up and my mom had like 1,000 different beliefs. It felt like she believed in God, but like, man, like you name it, we did it. Because my mom was like, she's like this intellectual being, and so like she wanted to see it. Like, so you name it, we saw it. Like Buddhism, Pentecostal, like you name the practice, like we were there. And so like I just Catholic, like I just felt like I was burnt out. And Heather took me to this church, and I was like, oh, this ain't half bad. Music was decent. The thing was there. Like there was a voice. You know how sometimes like there's like just a voice in the worship, and you're like, oh, I like that voice, right? And the preacher was good, and it was like, okay, this ain't half bad. And the one thing I think that she did during that time period that helped us kind of create that bridge is like she refocused me in regards to like finding a sense of community. The number one thing that you want to do when you're in trouble is you want to isolate yourself, right? And like you want to create like this barrier. Nobody knows what I'm going through. Like life's so hard. And don't get me wrong, there are different levels of hard. I'll say this, and this is kind of a tangent, so I apologize. I'm going a little bit everywhere, but I promise I'll bring it back.
That's good.
My oldest son, we're getting ready to take him on a trip, and we're stopped at a gas station, and we're ready to go get gas. And we're at this gas station at a Walmart, and a guy who is unhoused walks up to me, and he's like, "Hey man, can I have money? And I'm gonna get something to drink." And I was like, "No, like, hey, we're getting ready to hit the road, but I tell you what I can do is I can just give you some money, and then or I can go buy you some food because it's right across, like McDonald's right across the street." And so like the guy looks at my vehicle. So keep this in mind. This unhoused individual looks at my vehicle, looks at me, I hand him a 20, and he's like, "Man," he's like, "you should have given me more."
Yeah.
Gave me my 20 back and then went and sat back down. Right. So when I tell you there's different levels of hard, that guy's hard is 100% different than the hard that I'm living at the time, right? His hard is, how do I find the next fix? Because that fixes what his goal is And I hate to use it that way, but that's like
Yeah.
his goal is not the same as mine. And so like when I think about those times and I think about those things, it's like my wife helped me refocus and find number one, what my heart really was, which is a matter of like soul searching and digging to the bottom, like what were things that were preventing me from getting there. Two is we recommitted ourselves to find a sense of community. And even though that we were having troubles in business at the time, like we gave back. We were abundant with our time. I may not have been able to give more money in situations to the church. I couldn't tithe more. I couldn't do a ton else, but like I could give my time to someone else, and that filled my bucket, right? Like we volunteered
Yeah.
at church. No, my wife led by example on that. Like she volunteered at church and she was in the thing, and we read, and we were in this growth track program, and we did all these things to get reconnected, which in turn led me to a small men's group, right? And again, these are different variations of hard that you see, right? And there's people from all walks of life, some super wealthy, some on their way up, some that are just starting in their relationship with God and with money. And it was phenomenal because not only did I get an opportunity to express myself, but it also led to ultimately us being able to get back on our feet. And it wasn't from the small group and it wasn't from those pieces, but it was the entire part of the journey that was like refocusing, finding a goal, finding community, being abundant with my time and giving it to others, focusing directly in regards to like how do I hold ourselves accountable, having clear and concise clarity on the goal, and then moving forward. And then ultimately it led to our something that was outside of our wildest dreams, which is what we ended up selling our gym. And so
Mm.
like you'd have told me when that whole thing started that, hey, you're sleeping in a friend's bedroom, the six of you guys, and then you basically don't have a ton of cash. You're going to get $1,000. That $1,000 is going to get to you signing people up. You're going to regrow the gym, rebuild the culture, rebuild yourself, and then sell it. I'd have never believed it.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing up the piece of the danger of men being in isolation, the importance of community, and how that played a role through all this for you. Because I've talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, how no doubt as men, we will go over and isolate ourselves and just kind of hide from a lot of problems, right? And community, our church community specifically has just been so instrumental in my family, my marriage, our walk with the Lord, my children's walk with the Lord, how I've pursued business and partnership. I mean, like all these things. But then in addition to that, Christian men who are way ahead of me in business and mentorships and things like that, that have just, I don't know where I'd be without all those things, like that community of people. I mean, yeah, it's just so instrumental. I cannot say it enough. And I appreciate you bringing that up, just the role that that's played for you all, no doubt about it. I want to draw some things out from your just really operator mindset as well.
Yeah.
And because I know that you're working with lots of entrepreneurs and who are struggling in different ways, and I think I've seen you quoted where you say they don't actually have a marketing problem, they have an operator problem, and I wanted you to be able to elaborate on that a little bit and us dive in there as well.
Most people believe that like because you run to the thing that basically is the least painful. Right.
That's right.
And so
Yeah.
like most people believe that like the number one issue in your business is the fact that like I can't like I have a lead issue. That is my problem. If I just had more leads, my life would be different. Where in all actuality, if you got flooded with leads, what it would show you is that like the whole other problem is what you're not even looking right. And so when we think about things, they're like, especially like when I talk to individuals, like as they're coming into a program or as they're just like working through processes, is we see pretty quickly that there are no processes on the backside for individuals to be able to create success, right? And so like they focus, most operators in most businesses, and this isn't just fitness businesses, this is business in general. And you probably have seen this too in all of your conversations, is that like the number one thing that people go to is a lead problem because it's the easiest thing to manipulate. And if you think about what the market tells you all the time, it's like, let me get you these leads. And it's you don't pay until you have somebody come through your door, and you do all these different things that are out there that are an abundance of information, but they do it because it's the sexiest thing. It's the lady in the red dress. The hard work, no different than anything that we've talked about this entire podcast, but like the hard work are the things that have to happen on the back end in order for you to be successful, right?
Mm.
And so it's like, do you have a proper retention system? Are you leading by example to your team? Do you understand like how to hold the line in your business when it comes to making decisions? Have you created clarity? Do you have regular meetings? Like all these things that have to happen in order to it. I think most business owners in all actuality live by the 55-45 rule. And so that's like 55% of the time they're only doing half of the work. And then the other 45% of the time they're doing 60% of the wrong work. And so like and all that really means, I know that sounds a little crazy, but the truth of the matter is that like we get really hyper focused on doing a lot of the wrong thing instead of a
Yeah.
little right.
Yeah. No doubt. I speak to your 3-3-5 operator system because I'm sure that plays into all this as well.
Yeah, and so like the 3-3-5, it's just a basic framework that we go by, right? So like I'm an old football player and I like to use simple terminology, right? So like if you think about things like we have playbooks and we have those things. So 3-3-5 is pretty simple. So it's like pillar number one is just making sure that like you own your numbers, right? So one of the biggest gaps I think in most businesses is the fact that like people make every decision that they have based off of like how they feel, not
Mm,
actually like what the numbers are, right? Number two is that we just hold the line. And so like what I mean by that is, as an owner, you can't lower your standard. Your standard is the standard in which it has the business run. And then if you're holding that standard, then that means it's infectious, right? Which leads to like number three, which is basically like protecting the energy. And so what I mean by that is that like if you are the owner and if you are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, you're not protecting your energy. You are basically you're trying to protect your business against the spoils of the world, right? In comparison to building a process, letting go directly to it, and then working your way and coaching your way and leading individuals through the process, right? The second three is basically like the ceiling of the business is your leadership, right? And so like I think it's have you ever seen like the old adage it's like the guys that are stuck like in the can and it's like the business can't grow unless they can get
yeah.
past the same thing that works in this, right? So number one, and I think this is probably the theme of the podcast, is like lead with clarity. So you want to make sure that like at the end of the day, like your things are so dialed out through communication that at the end of the day, like they have no choice but to go forward, right? Number two is that we want to communicate and then we want to create action. And so I'm a big believer in the fact that like we create like these 90-day targets and then everything that we communicate goes directly towards that targets. Like most people call them like WIGs or like wildly important goals. We just like to think about them as like clear and concise action statements. Because like if I think about again another athletic analogy, but there's like four phases in the season, and so like legitimately it's a 3-month process or 90-day process throughout the course of it. You have preseason, which is you're getting ready for the season. You have during season, which you're running your way through it. You have postseason, which is basically getting your way after whatever happened in the season, preparing for the next season. This is usually where the most transformation happens on a football team. And then you have the summertime, right? So then you go back into it again, right? And so that way works through it. And so the last part to that three is like we want to build operators, like not order takers. And so like right now we're in an age where everybody believes that like AI is like coming to take your jobs and doing this and doing that. AI can only replace the doers, right? Not the decision makers. And your job as a leader is to create this level of individuals that are here to take your job or make your job a lot easier. When you walk into a team or when you're leading a team, that team should be better than when they ever met you. And what I mean by that is that like if you ever were replaced, it would be rightfully so because everybody who's left on that team is inherently better than you. That's a whole nother thing about abundance mindset that we talk about throughout the course of the process, but it's just the truth. And then the last thing are like the five core functions of business, right? And so the last piece is like your sales. So just making sure that you have a clear and concise acquisition system. You have fulfillment, which is ensuring that like not only can you get them, but you know how to keep them, and then you know how to deliver world-class service. You've got retention, which to me is like one of the sexiest things that most people just don't look at. So it's like, how do I make each individual worth more money to me, right? And then how do I increase their experience by them being worth more money? That's the little caveat. Is it isn't just okay to increase LTV. It's like, what does that LTV do for their client experience? Right. So like if I'm charging $5, but everybody stays with me, I can't afford to fulfill and I can't afford to send out birthday cards to individuals because that would take up 50% of what they're paying me. Like, I can't afford to do things that a gym that's charging $25 can do. And so those are low examples, but that's where it comes from. Ascension is that there has to be a clear and concise ascension model across the board. Most people just don't believe that. It's really weird to me, but if you start to break down any business, now that we've got some other companies under our portfolio. So like we have, this we have the coaching department, which is our coaching consulting company that we have for gyms. And then now we have this Max Life, which is in our portfolio too, with a complete GLP-1 and peptide company, but like there's ascension processes that we've built in there too. So it isn't just about the first purchase. It's about like, hey, like what is the next thing? So maybe you bought a GLP-1, but now part of your journey to increase your results is to sell you into a peptide. The same thing works like in every business. Is like there always has to be that. And the last piece is like you just have to make a decision, and that revenue like doesn't fix it, like your discipline will. So like another saying that we live by is like discipline over dopamine. And so like instead of worrying about
That's
like
good.
that one hit, it's like no, like how can I be disciplined to be able to get this over time? Because like that's where success looks like, right? It's like how do I create this longevity over time? And we talked about experiences, we talked about like being ready so you don't have to get ready. We've talked about all these things, but like that is the nuts and bolts of that 335 is just understanding like those pieces to the business and then taking them and turn them into clear and concise action.
Love that. I love the structure and the details behind it. And even in the beginning, you're talking about protecting your energy and thinking through some of that. And it leads me right to most men will say, and I'm guilty of this too, well, I'm doing all this for my family, right? I'm building, leading, growing businesses, starting businesses, and no doubt to have your success and to do all these businesses. I mean, you got to have that structure in place, and you're helping so many others do that same thing. How have you kept the businesses from consuming your family?
We have like frameworks. And we have guidelines in our family, right? So like one of the things that we instituted, I think has worked really well. And this is there's two things. And again, you're getting all the behind the scenes stuff here, right?
This is good. That's what we want.
So if my wife friends like are watching this, they're gonna be like, what? That makes a lot of sense now. So one thing is that we set hard times in regards to like what it is, our goal, and even like small things. So we have a family meeting every week. In that family meeting, we talk about meals, we talk about ups, we talk about downs. We do that. We agree to eat 3 to 4 times per week, typically speaking, 4 times a week with each other. In that time period that we have that we eat with each other, like, and it's cool because Heather and I don't lead it. Our kids, what was the best part about your day, right? But what's cool about that is that they don't ask questions like, was your day a good day? Was it a bad day? Because one of the things that we teach them is like that's not true. A day is a day. And then we talk about the things that we can do to improve, but it's still because they ask questions because they listen with intent, and so they ask those questions during those time periods. Another thing that we do is like we have hard stops. So like I've moved into like no working on Sundays. That helps my family a ton. I've also changed my work schedule because I'm naturally up early. So like I have moved my time that I work to where there's dead silence in the house, and that helps too because when everyone's home, then I get to hang out and I get to be dad, right? Heather and I meet, and we talk business, and we talk the business of the Dunhams, which is a whole nother thing, right? I'm a lot to deal with now. And so like we talk the business of the Dunhams and we talk the business of things, right? So like she tells me about the things that are going on with her. I tell her about the things that are going on with me. We talk structurally about the things that happen like with the family and what needs to happen. Like we talked last night, and like there's a trip that our girls have for like FBLA, and then there's they're going to Nashville for cheer, and they just got back from cheer. But all these things affect the family in different ways, and so we navigate through those items. The biggest thing that I would say is that like you set the boundaries to protect your family, but then you just live by those things. And so like you schedule your family time first, and then you delegate the operations directly to your business, whatever you have or whoever you have that is there. But we're respectful of those things too. Don't get me wrong. And then we basically don't allow our business to be like a constant presence. When I worked in the corporate world, post owning a gym, like I was 24/7 on Slack, like 24/7 on Slack. The promise that I made to Heather and to my kids was like, I was not going to be a slave to work once we owned our own things. And that is something that we've dealt with, right? And so, my kids, we watched the show Blackish. At the end of the show, there's this thing, it's like daddy's working. And like that used to be their joke. Well, my kids used to be the joke because if I was sitting with them on the couch, I'd have my iPad or I'd have my cell phone and I'd be responding to Slacks or I'd be talking to customers. I'll never forget one of the moments that changed this for us was we were going through a hurricane. It was the first hurricane that we had in our new home. And we were going through this hurricane, and I had to have, so just throwing this out there, and we can think about how wild this really is, but like we were going through a hurricane and I had to do an exit interview for my old job during that hurricane because the guy lived in a different part of the country. And it's a hurricane in Florida. So keep in mind, this is a disgruntled person, 120-mile-per-hour wind, boom, boom, beating up the house, going through this entire process. Everybody's inside. I'm on the phone. hey man, like, can you tell me what's happening in your business? Can you tell me where it's at? I can laugh about it now. Can you tell me what's happening? Can you tell me what's going on? Oh, like here's where it's at. We want to be more rational than they are. There can only be one person in the angry boat. All the things that you go through and that you learn in crisis diversion. And so we're going through the call. I'm like, hey man, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I have to go. I can feel and hear the wind ripping on my door and pushing water in our front door. I've got to get off the phone. Right?
Wow.
Guy says, I'm not going to use the word. I could give a F about what's happening at your house. I want to cancel my membership with you guys. What you're doing is irrelevant and you're just making up a story. So don't get me wrong. People are people, and I completely understand that. But there's a lesson in what was there, though, right? My family is huddling around the leader of the family, and I am spending my time talking to this individual so he won't not pay $3,197. That is not a priority.
Right. Wow.
And I will never forget that moment. Never. And I'm lucky that my kids don't necessarily like that's not something that's ingrained in their thing. Their thing is like, we were here and, Heather and I made it fun and, it was a camp out in the living room and it's not like it was fun to them. But like that is the moment that I will always remember. And that is why, the reservations and things that are there. But that's why I said if the business was to ever collapse, like if someone stepped away, right, then you don't own the business, like it's just an extenuated job. And that was the example of that because that was a job.
Yeah. It owned you.
Yeah.
Wow. What an intense moment that just changes us, right? The Lord
Yeah.
uses those times to, refocus us. Man, we need his help to continue in that way. Wow. I'd love to keep talking about that. Unfortunately, and we're out of time, Dave. Maybe we can have you back in the future and us dive in some more on some of these topics. I would love that. I want you to have time, though, to give one challenge to the men listening today. If they could act this week in some way and become a stronger husband, father, leader, what would that challenge be?
My challenge would be is to understand that your legacy is not your revenue. And so like, if you can spend 1 hour this week with your family, like investing in them, then that is how you create a legacy.
That's well said. I love that. That's incredible. Dave, so grateful to have had you on the show. My goodness, you're a great guest, great example for us men who are experiencing hard seasons, right? And I appreciate your transparency behind hard seasons, even for you and Heather and how you all navigated those things together, which I think is crucially important. Even you giving her credit, by the way, you said she's going to listen to this. I hope she does. So, it's great. I love that, honoring her in that way. And no doubt, as I was telling you, maybe it was before we started recording, I don't know where we'd be without our spouses. I don't know where I'd be. I mean, my goodness, I don't even want to think about it, honestly. But yeah, so grateful for you, grateful for Heather as well. And just your transparency behind hard seasons. Every man listening is going to face hard seasons if they haven't already, that you're going to, right? And I hope that they are preparing themselves, with the Lord and just time with the Lord, time with your family. You're growing in that leadership with them and just every day. So thank you for being that example for us and being willing to share. How can the listeners find you, get in touch with you, learn more about you?
I guess the easiest way to get a hold of me is Instagram, right? And so you can find me on Instagram. It's THE, Dave, DAVE, Dunham. On Instagram, that's going to be the easiest way. Shoot me a message. I respond back typically within 24 hours. Like, we're in a stage right now where we're growing and God's providing a lot for us right now. And I'd love to be able to just help someone or help someone find some abundance as well. Like we've got got a goal internally in our house right now is to give away 100 hours. And so like that's 100 hours of communication that we have to help someone else out that doesn't live in our household. And so that's all of us combined. And so it's just a really nice thing. So our kids volunteer. We answer questions online. If people hit me up and ask me questions about their business, I'm happy to answer and go through those things. Like it's just it's what we're called to do.
Wow. I love that challenge right there. As a family, you all have committed to giving away 100 hours. Is that right? Is that kids included? Is that just you?
It's kids too.
Oh no, it's everybody. Yeah, like Heather volunteers at church. We have our two girls volunteer at church. My oldest son, he will go and volunteer at a baseball field, and he'll help the kids. My youngest kid will volunteer at school. Two girls will volunteer at school. Like I handle it in regards to like, we're doing some stuff around here with entrepreneurs that we've had with a kind of like a group of individuals who look like me, but haven't really had any structure in regards to like entrepreneurial status. And so being able to help people who have young, innovative minds, like, so we're doing these things to give away things. I know it seems crazy, but like, and when I say it back, like it sounds a little more self-serving, but it's really not. It's really our want to give away because we understand like what the abundance can do, not just for us, but for other people. If I had the same opportunity to speak with someone who was in a position who looked like me and who could do the things, then I think I would have driven me a lot farther than what I ended up doing, right? And so we want to be able to do the same thing. A lot of people that are out there don't have kids, and so they don't understand the struggle and they don't understand how to navigate. And so we're happy to help and push through.
Love that you've challenged me again here right at the end. This 100 hours, but I love how you're including the whole family in that. I love that you even mentioned how you and Heather are going and serving with the kids, right? They're seeing you serve as well and being that example. Wow, that's incredible. I hope the men listening are challenged by that. Man, even thinking about that in the family meetings weekly. Incredible. Dave, thank you so much. Grateful to have had you on the show and to have met you. I know you've encouraged so many men by being so transparent by your story and what you've learned, where the Lord has brought you and Heather. Thank you.